The success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has made many of the Marvel superheroes a household name. And while this is no doubt one of the largest periods of success for the many characters from the comic pages, the 1990s was also considered to be a bit of a boom period for Marvel Comics and their various properties. With several successful cartoon series hitting the airwaves all throughout the decade, and many popular lines of action figures filling the pegs of the toy aisles. Toy Biz was at the helm of these various Marvel Comics toy lines, giving fans an amazingly diverse cast of characters, both popular and obscure. And it all began in 1990. We're taking a look at the launch of the Marvel Superheroes toy line from Toy Biz today on Toysplosion. In a previous episode of Toysplosion, we took a close look at the 1991 launch of Toy Biz's X-Men toy line. We learned about the unique position that Toy Biz was in when it came to releasing toys based on the Marvel Comics characters. But before all of that, Toy Biz initially secured the license to Batman and the DC Comics characters. In a strictly defensive move, Toy Biz then acquired the Marvel Comics license by signing a different contract with Marvel. This was all an attempt to corner the market on superhero toys by Toy Biz. After the 1989 Batman movie became a huge success, the larger toy companies took notice and they wanted a piece of the action. The Licensing Corporation of America, the licensing agent for the Batman film, ultimately awarded a second DC Comics license to Kenner, despite Toy Biz being under the impression that they would be the sole license holders. This sounds like something we should visit more on a future episode about Batman toys. Now, ultimately, everything worked out fine for Toy Biz, as they would put their full focus on Marvel Comics and their characters, eventually gaining an exclusive, perpetual, royalty-free license by trading 46% of their stock to the Marvel Entertainment Group, a move that would go on to be mutually beneficial to both companies. While their 1991 X-Men toy line would find major success in the toy aisles, Toy Biz's first foray into the world of Marvel Comics superhero action figures began 1 year prior, with a focus on some of the more traditional, non-mutant comic characters. Let's start off by taking a look at Captain America. Since he's the first figure we're going to focus on, let's start by looking at the overall design. The body type is very similar across the board with this first wave. Each figure features basic articulation, a joint at the neck, the shoulders, the thighs, and bends at the knees. They all have the same bent elbow pose with their arms and have slightly skinny legs that are a bit too close together, making them all a tad unstable when standing. Each figure has some sort of action feature or a special weapon specific to the character. So naturally, Captain America comes with his trusty shield, but with a built-in action feature. The shield plugs onto this spring-loaded launcher, which can then be clipped to the hero's wrist. By pressing a button on the back, the shield launches off as if Captain America threw it at his foes. It works rather well, but it does look a bit bulky while clipped onto his arm. But no worries, the shield alone also has a small clip on the underside that fits on Captain America's wrist, so he can hold on to that shield without the launcher if desired. Daredevil was actually one of the more sought-after figures when this line first launched. He was produced in smaller numbers, thus making him a bit harder to track down. He eventually got reissued in future waves like many of these early figures. Much like with Captain America, Daredevil's action feature lies within his accessory. He includes this large grappling hook gun. Aside from the gun being a bit big for the figure, he also holds it oddly due to the way that the hole in his hand is angled. It causes him to always hold that grapple gun pointing slightly downwards. Pressing a button launches the hook, which is attached to the gun by a rather short string. It's a neat feature, but the hook doesn't fly too far due to that string length. Hulk stands roughly the same size as the rest of the figures in the lineup, but he is much wider. His action feature allows you to make him do what he does best: smash. The lever on his back is really interesting. By simply pressing that lever, you can raise Hulk's arms up and down. But by pulling the tab that's on that same lever, you can also cause Hulk's arms to squeeze together. This is great for wrecking the bad guys, but he also includes 2 accessories that are made specifically for this action. This bent bar can be placed in both of his hands and is made of a flexible plastic, making it look as though Hulk is bending an iron bar with his strength. This large boulder is made of a hollow plastic. It's a bit hard to get positioned between Hulk's hands, but the idea here is that he can crush it using that squeezing action feature. And when he does, the boulder always returns back to its normal shape once he lets it go. The Punisher was one of the more popular figures in this Marvel Superheroes toy line, leading to him getting a few new releases in future waves. This particular version includes 4 different guns, an arsenal to be expected of the character. However, only one of his hands is able to actually hold on to the guns, and for some reason this particular gun doesn't really fit in his hand at all. This first release also included a cap-firing action feature. It required the use of one of those paper roll caps, but it wasn't even included with the figure. Stringing the roll through his back and then releasing the hammer would cause it to snap back and pop the cap, as if Punisher was firing off his gun. The Silver Surfer was a basic action feature with the typical articulation seen in figures like Captain America and Daredevil. He has a matte silver paint deco, so he's not quite as shiny as he was often depicted in the comics, but still looks rather nice. He includes what his packaging refers to as his action surfboard. So as you've probably guessed, that surfboard is what houses the action feature for this particular figure. Surfer can stand on the board by inserting his feet into the small grooves, and there's wheels on the underside. By pulling the board back and releasing, the surfboard flies forward. We can't have a line of Marvel superheroes without your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And due to the popularity of the character, this was only the first of several Spider-Man figure releases in this line. This first version included suction cups attached to both of his hands. These suction cups are meant to stick to smooth surfaces, much in the way that Spider-Man is able to cling to walls and scale buildings. However, it's pretty common of the suction cups to really not work all that well with this figure. He also includes this black spiderweb accessory. It's made of a sticky, gummy plastic and can be clung to smooth surfaces just like Spider-Man, though that tacky feeling does eventually wear off, causing the ability to stick to be lessened over time. And then we have the villains. Dr. Octopus has one of the weaker designs in this lineup. He looks downright goofy, and there's something odd going on with the way that they designed his legs. But he does feature bendy tentacles. 2 of the tentacles include clips, allowing Doc Ock to grasp onto his foes or even clip onto objects for climbing. The other 2 have suction cups, allowing him to cling to smooth surfaces, much like Spider-Man. The figure may not be the best representation of the character, but the tentacles, honestly, work really great here. And the bendy wire feature would go on to become a staple for future Doc Ock action figures. One of the biggest villains of the Marvel Universe isn't terribly menacing in his first series action figure. He's a bit on the scrawny side. He includes a cloth cape and 2 accessories in the form of a shield and a drill weapon. These are both to be used with his rather interesting action feature. Plug either of those weapons into his right hand, then turn the dial on his back, and the hand spins in a full 360 degrees. It's certainly an odd one. This is where things get really fun. This first year saw the release of 2 vehicles for our heroes, both of which were totally made up for this line. Captain America's Turbo Coupe is a red, white, and blue car that features a cap shield battering ram on the front and a hidden hover chair that comes out of the vehicle by lifting up on the spoiler. But the Spider-Man Dragster is my favorite. This vehicle, colored like Spidey's iconic suit, features a web shooting line on the front that helps pull the vehicle over rough surfaces. It also has a pretty amazing spinning disc projectile. By attaching the disc to the top and winding it up, the disc flies off with pretty decent distance at the press of a button. You can even store the extra disc in the back hatch. And that brings us to the Training Center playset. This colorful tower is made up of several action features that are specifically meant to fit in with the figures in this first wave of Marvel superheroes. On the very top, there's a grappling hook zip line that you can aim and attach to another object. You can then use the included pulley, attached to the wrist of Spider-Man or any of your other heroes for that matter, for some web-swinging fun. Large turrets are placed on the top floor, and they are perfect for the Punisher. They make what's supposed to be a machine gun noise when you pull on the small lever back and forth. You can open the elevator in the center pillar by turning on that circle on the floor. Then by turning the yellow dial up on top, the elevator will raise to that second floor. There's a small trap on the back that has an image of fire on it. And if fire's not good enough for you, you can flip it over to reveal a sticker showcasing sharks. Directly above this is a trap door. By pressing the lever, you can drop the intruding bad guys down onto that pit, where they promptly bounce off of that shark sticker. Oh, and this little area right here is also referred to on the box as the speed ramp. I assume this is for the Silver Surfer to pull off some tricks with his board, which kinda works, I guess. A wall that looks like spider webs is meant for Spider-Man or Doc Ock for that matter to cling to with their suction cups. And then a wall of bricks at the front can be smashed down by the Hulk. Oh, and while you're at it, those wobbly pillars at the front can also be smashed by the Hulk. There's also these very loose red railings all around the top floor, so the heroes can knock the bad guys off to their doom. Or so Hulk can smash. There's a lot of things here for Hulk to wreck. I totally approve of that. The initial wave of action figures didn't quite match the success of what was to come just 1 year later with the launch of their X-Men line. But it was a great jumping off point. The Marvel Superheroes line would continue for 3 more waves, giving us a variety of characters from the comic pages of Thor, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and the Fantastic Four. By 1994, Toy Biz was a pretty dominant force in the toy aisles with several Marvel toy lines. But sadly, this was the final year of the dedicated Marvel Superheroes lineup due to declining sales. They just couldn't compete with the overall popularity of the X-Men during this time frame. However, this wasn't the last we'd see of these characters, and Toy Biz would go on to release several different Marvel toy lines, all with various levels of popularity. Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Iron Man, the Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, and many more would still see action figure releases throughout the decade. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me for a new episode of Toysplosion. I apologize for the delay between episodes, but I promise I'm getting myself back on track because I have so much fun making this show. I gotta give another very special thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Megalopolis Toys. Go show them some love, check them out. It's an amazing store, great selection, and the people that work there are super great guys, and they are a huge help to the production of this show. And of course, I couldn't do this without all of my supporters over on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me and for your continued support. It means so much to me. If you guys want to check this out for yourself, make sure you head on over to patreon.com/pixeldan. I try to throw out some perks like early viewings of the episodes and stuff like that. But of course, thanks to all of you as well, just for watching, for liking, for commenting, for sharing the videos. It really means a lot to me. And look, I got another awesome shirt on. I have the coolest shirts for these videos.